Someone in the comments section suggested that I check out Olde Sword Reign, which is what I'm going to do in this video. So Olde Sword Reign is a game that I haven't actually heard about before, and it was suggested to me. I'm really sorry, I can't find the name of who suggested it. I searched through my comments, I cannot find it, but I really appreciate your suggestion. And I haven't, it came out in 2013, so this is an older game. It's based on 5e, and the first license, so the OGL version 10A. So since that, this has been turned into Creative Commons. So there's a lot of versatility in this game. There is a full game that's quite thick and comprehensive, and then there's also a player's guide. So on the suggestion of the commenter, I thought, well, I better check this out. So I think that the comment what I had said that got him to comment was that I was thinking that it would be interesting to sort of make a game based on 5e that was sort of OSR, or that used the 5e rules but wasn't actually 5e. Anyway, this game sort of goes along those lines. It takes the 5e rules and sort of transforms them into an OSR. The book itself makes reference to the White Book. I don't think that they're trying to get exactly close to the White Book. It's kind of an amalgamation. It's sort of old school and 5e kind of mixed in together. So, that's really cool. So I'm just going to go through it. So we've got our credits here. It was created by Damien Fagan. I hope I said that right. Covers by Dean Spencer. And we've got the other credits here. I think this is a really cool book. I'll read the back of it. Olde Sword Reign is a tabletop role-playing game based on 5th edition, but designed with emergent gameplay in mind. It's faster, a tad deadlier, and relies more on player creativity to problem solve than the options on a character sheet. So yeah, there's the ISBN if you want to get yourself a copy. It's a POD, I believe, and from Amazon. So here's the basics. Whoops, let's get too far. So this is I get the impression from reading it that the idea is to make it OSR, but then you read the back and it doesn't quite seem like it's sort of like uses a little OSR, but it's also sort of simplifies 5th edition D&D. And I guess if somebody was used to 5e and they wanted to try out playing in the OSR, this might be a good transition. It's a little bit like, not quite leaping into the deep end. You would sort of, get to, try out a sort of like between the shallow end and the deep end, kind of the ramp going down between the two. That's kind of how I envision this game. It's a really cool game, though. I really like how it simplifies a lot of stuff. I really like that it's all comprehensive. I mean, one book to have all the rules. I really like that. I think that's great. So, simplified classes and races. Only 4 classes, 4 races, but all have huge amounts of flexibility. So, this does not have race as class. So, it's not like BX or something. It's more like 1E in that way, so you can have a elf fighter, elf thief, that sort of thing. I don't recall seeing anything about restrictions, like from for example, a dwarf being a wizard. I don't recall any restrictions like that. There's no subclasses, which I like. Subclasses, just, if you've watched my videos, you know my stance on creating superheroes, and I sort of feel like this just creates superheroes when you add on too much stuff. The things that it sort of takes away from what the DM can offer as treasure and loot, and how the DM can help, how adventuring, not the DM, but how adventuring can help build up the characters. because it really, in my opinion, lowers the quality and the quantity of magic that you can hand out when you just start rolling out so many abilities. So I really like getting rid of that. Classes stop at level 12. I mean, yeah, the rules stop there, but I mean, there's nothing to stop you from just, winging it and letting them go higher. Skills replaced by backgrounds. I like that. I don't mind skills so much, but I really think that skills should take a back seat. I'm kind of the opinion, back in the before the white box, I believe, they had thieves didn't exist. So you had fighters, magic users, clerics, and it was pretty much assumed everybody could attempt these things. Then they introduced the thief. That introduced all these skills, percentages of being able to do this or that thing. And I kind of really like the old way of not having thieves. It's hard to imagine D&D now without thieves, but I really do think that there is an improvement to leave thieves out and just allow everybody a chance to move forward. Because basically thieves, or the underclass, they are quite capable of being wizards and quite capable of being fighters. It's more a choice. It's more of a sort of moralistic choice to whether you're going to steal things from people or not. And I never understood the distinction. I understand the distinction between fighter and wizard simply because one is more studious than the other, where they're not studious, but one's more inclined, more bookish, if you like. So that makes sense. And cleric makes sense because they worship deities and stuff. But I mean, why couldn't the moral code of a wizard allow a wizard to also learn how to open locks or to climb walls, or allow a fighter to open locks or climb walls? I really don't see a role for the thief in that. If you disagree with me, I'd love to hear. Or if you agree, please leave a comment. That would be really awesome. Also, leaving a comment really helps out the channel, and I appreciate it. I do read all the comments. I don't necessarily get to answering them all, but I do try. All right. So I like that. Skills replaced by background. Feats and hindrances. The feat system allows you to create a character concept, come up with four base classes. Hindrances add a little more flavor to your character, more creating more opportunities for shenanigans. Yeah, and the feats and hindrances are both optional rules. Again, I would probably leave them out. I like hindrances, but I like hindrances as a result of combat. If you get really injured, that kind of thing. That's my preference. But I mean, there's no reason. I mean, it's perfectly fine. Great system. I'm just leaving you my comments and stuff, what I think about this. This isn't a criticism so much as just me talking about, the different stuff. Because I really appreciate this game. I like it. It was a great effort. Simplified difficulty classes, DCs. Yeah, this is excellent. I really like that. I'm going to show you what I use instead. I don't really use DCs because they didn't really exist, in BX and 1E. So I use something different, and it always used the D6, so I'll show you that. Simplified range and movement. That's always good. I like that. Spell list, 120 spells. That's awesome. Monster hit dice. All monsters use a D8. I like the simplicity of that. That's definitely OSR flavored. Simplified monster creation and conversion. Yeah, this one's really interesting. This is probably going to be a long video, because I'm going to go through this. But that one's really interesting, and I'll talk about it right at the end. So creating the character, we go through the basics here. The ability scores, I'm sure most of us are familiar with that. If everybody is familiar with that. So this is something interesting. I like the down the line option. It gives a down the line option. I'm currently playing a basic fantasy campaign, and we're doing that down the line. It's really fun because you just don't have superhero characters that way. And personally, I like that. I think it makes the game more fun. So ability score modifier table. This is interesting because this is not like the white box. And the only reason I'm bringing up white box is just because the book itself makes mention of it. Back in Making Monsters, it mentions sword and wizardry, and then in another section it mentions white box. So even though it doesn't explicitly state it's trying to be OSR, I think that because it makes reference and it's suggesting that throughout the book, it's fair to compare it to that. And I know this is 5e, so it's sort of a mix together, and I appreciate that. It's actually pretty cool. But one thing I'll point out is interesting is that if you have an 18 to 19, you get a +4 modifier. That's really high for BX or, say, white box. But it was possible in first edition D&D, let's say, where you had percentile dice. You could get scores that high. Okay, it has no race as class, but it does have races, and then you choose your class. At least that's my understanding. Superpowers I've got written here. Yeah, choose 2 abilities. This is humans. Choose 2 ability scores. Strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma increase by 1. Why? Why? You know, I don't know. I just really think that's unnecessary. I think it makes a game kind of too easy. I understand players like it, but I think once they play, you know, in the old school style, they would like that as well. Okay, so we've got cleric, we've got fighter, we've got the expert, which is the thief. Again, you know, the idea that if you're a fighter, you can't really look in and develop skills, or if you're a magic user, you can't really look into and develop skills. And where I have an issue with this is the people I know that are into fighting, and the people I know that are into, you know, are bookish. They have a lot of skills outside of just fighting and just that stuff. I have trouble with the thief. Magic user. So, beyond first level here. So this is kind of interesting. Training option. I do like training. That was in the OSR in some versions. And instead of just instantly leveling up, you actually have to go higher, and you have to take time out of the game to actually train. And when you're training, you're actually your character's outside of the game. It actually, at lower levels, when somebody goes from first to second level, because they're out of the game, it gives a player maybe a chance to roll up another character to take with them, or play something else for that game session while that player's out training or whatever. I really like it. It's a neat way of leveling up, I think, and it kind of expands the game a little bit. It's very good. Just a single XP table, so that's very different than the OSR. OSR typically loves to have lots of tables and charts and everything else, although the newer games don't. They're based on OSR, and they are very simplified, so this isn't sort of chasing the old school so much as the new old school, if that makes any sense. Hey, these things are evolving, right? Anyway, I think that this is interesting. It uses the 5e, as you can see, because you don't need a lot of experience points to go up in levels. Has bonuses. These are for, as you level, these are for your proficiencies, and your bonuses increase as you level. Multi-class option, because, you know, you have to have that. A little section on proficiencies. Yeah, so here we go. This is the backgrounds. So although I say this is not very OSR in my comments, I'm going to show you something. Just a minute. Okay, so just in reference to the background skills, I want to show how this is the first edition D&D, and we used to use a thing. We used to use these. I believe they were an option. I'm not sure. It says player character non-professional skills, and we used to roll for one of these, and I always enjoyed that because I liked the idea that sort of being a fighter, a wizard, or a cleric was a secondary passion, or not secondary passion, but a newly found passion, if you like, and that the characters had some sort of background, you know, something that they learned when they were younger how to do. I really like that. It called them secondary skills. Today they're called background skills, but I still really like it. I think it's a great addition. So you have all your different backgrounds, and that's from 5th edition, but they're basically secondary skills. Just gives you a few, you know, a little bit of background, something to draw on. So in this, yeah, see here he says moves away from the original white box, right, using feats, but it's sort of going to 3.5, right? With feats. And if you go like with the real OSR, then you don't really need feats. And I don't really like feats. I like to add the feats to magic items. So I like to have swords that'll let you do a feat, and I like to have daggers and boots and, you know, claws of climbing and that kind of thing. I like to take the feats, and I really love feats because they're really great magic items, and then I incorporate them into magic items. But if the characters have the feats, then I can't do that. That's sort of what I mean, right? And this one here, by combining backgrounds, feats, and multiclassing, you cease to be restricted by the idea of traditional character classes. If you want a character who is a storytelling bard, then flies into a rage and feels guilty and heals their victims, it's all there. Superhero. That's my opinion on it. But it's great. I mean, but it's a really nice way of doing it. It's a simplified 5e version, so I'm not complaining. I just my opinion. Yeah, so I let players try anything, basically, as you can imagine. So expert feats. Again, I really don't see any reason for this. It's better that they find magic items that can do that thing. Like, instead of seeing in the dark, you know, let's say they can find a torch that never goes out, or a torch that will ignite with a word. You know, you just have to say a magic word and the torch ignites. All of a sudden, see, night vision would have taken that option away. But how much nicer it is to have that magic item, right? But, you know, I can see from a game design stance, if you don't trust people to be able to DM their games that way, then this is needed. I hate to say this, but it kind of like 5e reminds me of D&D with the training wheels on. Because they include all this stuff because they don't think as a DM that you're going to be able to do it or keep track of it. That's my opinion on it. Yeah, it might be controversial. You can rip me a new one in the comments if you don't feel that way, but that's my opinion, man. So, general feats, hindrances. Again, I don't mind these. You know, I tend to prefer hindrances not at the beginning of a game, but I like them to happen as people slowly get cursed and as they get damaged, as they gain injuries. Like, in my basic fantasy game, if a character goes down to 0 or fewer hit points, they get a saving throw. If they fail the saving throw, then there's a chance that they'll get an injury or a debilitation, and I'll roll on sort of what debilitation that might be. Typically, it's they get a -1 to one of their ability scores. It goes down, but they might get a scar or a limp or something like that. You know, and those hindrances, those debilitations come about through gaming rather than starting off with them. I mean, if a character, if somebody really wanted to start off with something like that, of course, I would allow them, of course. I just think that this is sort of a means of reminding DMs that this is an option, but I think people that have played for a while would just know that this can happen. So, hindrance table. Yeah, languages. Now, this is very old school. You know, personally, I always like to make up languages. So if I have Dwarvish, I'll make up 3-4 Dwarvish languages for my campaign world, etc. I'm currently building a new campaign world. My old basic fantasy game fell apart, so now I'm starting up a new basic fantasy game, which is really fun. And currently looking for players in my local area, which is fun. It's hard to find them. I live in a small town, you know. Yeah, this is all I use too. I really like this. I agree with this. You know, copper, silver, gold. The only thing I like to do is I like to have different denominations with different weights, just to add like an absurd complexity to it. The game sometimes, depending. So I like to have the coins look a little different, maybe weigh a little different. You know, so I usually have a standard of where the campaign's taking part, and I sort of measure all coins off of that. So, you know, here I have the ratios of them, but I might have a gold coin from another realm that's worth, you know, only half as much because it's half the size of this gold coin, right? So all of a sudden it changes the values just to add a little difference, you know? So selling treasure. Yeah, I already covered this in another video. I have a lot of trouble with the idea of selling treasure, especially like, but I understand why. I mean, it's difficult to understand the Middle Ages and stuff, and I'm not saying I do, but one thing I do understand is it really wasn't a market economy like we have today. So going in trying to sell magic items and stuff, I'm not so sure or buy them. It's kind of like it brings a modern element to the game that I'm not really comfortable with. But, so many people are used to it that, of course, they have to have it. And I like it. And plus, it's easier to relate to, right? So that's always a really good thing. Armor, nice and simple. I think the armor is great because it's nice and simple. I like that. So, weapon proficiencies. Yeah, this is a thing. I remember when I first encountered weapon proficiencies, I thought they were awesome. I really did. It was one of the first things that introduced me to the idea that all of a sudden now magic items had to be limited a little bit. Because when I was playing BX, we didn't have weapon proficiencies, but we had really cool magic items, right? The big bonuses. Then when we started using weapon proficiencies, those kind of went by the wayside, and I kind of like the magic items better. So this was sort of my first introduction to, hey, maybe I don't want these options right off. Improvised weapons, silver weapons, nice tables for weapons. Equipment list. Yeah, like I say here, a little too simple for my taste, but still adequate. It works. The 5th edition, it goes all out. There's tons of equipment in there. And since this is supposed to be compatible, you can probably use those. Well, actually, it doesn't say it's compatible. I shouldn't say it's compatible. It may not be compatible. I didn't actually look into that. It's just based on 5e. So, yeah, this is always good to have all this stuff, modes of transportation, boats, whatever. In the BX game, I had tons of fun back in the day with just the amount of, just the little snippets that they had on ships, and we had loads of fun just with that, so it's really fun. Spell slots, not very OSR, I've got to say, but fun. I really like spell slots. I think that's a nice addition. I think spell slots, it allows magic users to have more flexibility with their spells and stuff, and I think that's a great addition to an OSR game. Casting spells, so here we go, magic list, cleric spells, like I say here, not a big selection, but not bad either. Pretty good for a simple little game that goes up to 12, and you can always add more spells, and so that's kind of a neat thing. Too, that I like, is that when a rule set doesn't have a lot of spells, it affords me the opportunity to introduce new spells, and it affords the players the opportunity to create spells. Because if there's every spell known, in the game has already been created, then what motivation do the players have to create spells? And I think creating spells, the wizard, once they get high enough level and they hide away in their tower and they work on a new spell and then they come out and they introduce it in the adventure, I think that stuff is awesome. So I like limited spells. I think it's great. All the different spells. By the way, it's got nice artwork. Higher plane table. All the standard spells. Skip a few pages here. Reincarnation, speak with animal. So, yeah, pretty standard. General rules, the difficulty. I like the base. I like this, the 5e difficulty system. I don't use it in my own game like Basic Fantasy. Basically, what I do, I house rule it. And this is sort of exactly what I do. I just use a D6 because in the OSR, it was always your chance of being surprised. 1 in 6, 2 in 6. Your odds of finding a secret door, 3 in 6. Always really like that. So I just wrote out here what I basically do. Very easy is 5 and 6 easy, 4 and 6 normal, 3 and 6 hard is 2 and 6, very hard is 1 and 6. And then if somebody has a bonus on an ability score, say, they have a +1 for their dexterity, I'll just bump it up. So if I think that something is normal and they have a bonus, I'll just make it easy. If they don't, or if they have a negative, I'll make it hard. And then I just roll the die very quick and easy. I think I just do that because I'm used to it. And if you're used to this other, having DCs and all of that, then yeah, I mean, it's great. It's a great way to sort of streamline the game. Inspiration, I've used this for years and years and years. Back in my 2nd edition D&D games, but I called it luck, and I would award people luck points, and it would allow them to re-roll a die roll at any time if they wanted, and it was their luck, and it was like a special reward. Yeah, the saving throws doesn't feel very OSR to me, but it is definitely 5th edition version. It's very simple and streamlined. I like that. Yeah, this is something interesting, and I don't know if it's true. I don't know the author. I'm not going to make any assumptions. Just the impression I get from the rules. But I understand that what he's doing is he's simplifying 5e, so I may be misinterpreting this easily. It just feels like maybe he thinks that OSR is easier than 5e, which it sure isn't. Again, if you think that, here's the original D&D book. Good luck finding the rules in here. Right? It is not simple. It's just not. But I know that there is, and then you've got like Rollmaster and stuff like that. So I know that there's a tendency now to make the OSR games kind of simplified. But they sure didn't start out that way. But, you start at Swords and Wizardry, that's highly simplified. And the white set was simple. BX was simplistic. But then after that, it got quite complicated. Again, this is BECMI. I guess that's what the kids call it. But it's the Rule Cyclopedia. Again, I don't think OSR means simple. It can. I know there's a tendency to make it simple, but I would argue that this is every bit as complicated, more complicated than 5th edition for sure. In fact, those rules may even be more complicated than the 1st edition. But anyway, so you get the idea. So I know this is simplifying 5e, making it more OSR. But does it really make it more OSR if you go simple? So, like, for example, the saving throws, very simplified saving throws, which I get why doing that. It's a good idea. I definitely approve of it. But is it OSR? Not really. Is it the new OSR? Yeah, it kind of is. I mean, there's lots of OSR-style games that are just completely simple, So, it just is what it is. The whole thing runs a gambit, right? Ranges. I love this. This is this new trend that's going on now, just to have these really simple ranges. I love that. New trend. This came out in 2013, didn't it? 2013, yeah. But anyway, I like that. The encumbrance. I love simplified encumbrance. I do agree completely with this statement. Unfortunately, encumbrance gets hand-waved in too many games, which is a shame. I 100% agree with that. Because if you do pay attention to encumbrance, it affords all kinds of opportunities. Like, for example, having to go back and forth between dungeons, having to hire caravans, having to have wagons to carry your loot around, having to have hirelings and servants and stuff to just carry your stuff around with you, because as you start to level, you start bringing more and more crap with you. How about if you're a fighter and wanting to have like the equivalent of a squire because you've got like 5-6 magic items? Again, a really nice thing to have, because without feats, your different swords can have different abilities that give you those things, but now all of a sudden you need a squire or something to carry this stuff around with you, so that when you're in the heat of combat, they can hand you the right weapon, right? Stuff like that. I totally love that, and I think that having feats and those abilities kind of get in the way of that. Falling stand. Yeah, this is standard. This is True Sight. Now this True Sight thing, I don't know where this came from. Is this a 5e thing? This should be a spell. It's really powerful to be able to do this all the time. I've always been, there was a house rule someone introduced me to decades ago, dating myself, where, you know, if a creature was very high level or very high hit die, then sometimes it could see invisible stuff and whatever. And I like that because it explained dragons. It explained like the Hobbit and stuff, right? You know, where the dragon could actually see invisible if he wanted. You know, if I thought that was pretty neat. But to just be wandering around with it, nah, you gotta be kidding me. Better to have like a helmet that gives it to you, so many charges, something like that. My opinion, anyway. So breather, yeah, this is a big difference, right? Breather, short rest, long rest. I like it from 5th edition. I think that it will help. I mean, because normally you rest for a day. If it doesn't get interrupted, you get a hit point back. You know, sometimes the way we played, just to give everybody a better chance, is we would allow you to get back D6 hit dice. You know, but this kind of like diminishes the need for a cleric, and it does make the game a lot easier if you're trying to do OSR, these rest things. But I get it, I like it, and especially if you're coming from 5th edition, you're going to want this because you're not going to be used to the intensity and the difficulty of playing an old school style game, right? Marching orders, random encounters. Random encounters are rolled every 2 turns. My nose just seems like a lot. It really does to me. Dungeon doors. This is a great breakdown of dungeon doors. Dungeon doors were a big thing back in the day. Whether they would open, wouldn't open, slam, shut, all the things doors could do to you. And I really like one of his comments down here about his characters. You know, saying that they had the doors. Yeah, see, my players have a running joke that the doors are the worst enemies. Not being able to open, one being worried about what's behind, or even having them shut by monsters when someone goes in has led to some pretty fantastic war stories. I agree 100%. The doors should be a major adversary. I mean, the door slams shut, you can't open it. You gotta pray you can find a secret passage, right? You know? It's a lot of fun. I like this. Very simple, very nice. Provisions. It's great. Again, the watch thing. I like the way that they break the day down into 4-hour increments, and then got nice rules for this. I really like this. I don't know if this is from 5e or not. I've played 5e. I've never DM'd 5e. I don't really remember. I haven't played a lot of games of 5e. Getting lost. Standard thing. This is kind of interesting. I put my dad's story here because apparently my dad is like a 20th level ranger or something, because a player can choose to forage for a watch. It would be 4 hours. This cannot be done while traveling, and check DC is based on terrain table. Alright, so the story I have about my dad is if you go for a hike with my dad out in the woods, I guarantee you'll come back stuffed. He knows what you can eat. He just nibbles and eats the entire time he's walking along. It's really something to see. He just eats and eats and eats because he knows all of these plants that you can eat and what they're good for, the medicinal value. So I think this is kind of funny that you can't do it while traveling. I tell that to my dad. He's just amazing. I'm too scared to do it. Like, being dyslexic and stuff, I don't trust my memory enough to be able to remember what's edible and what isn't. But my dad, wow. So, according to this rule, he's like a 20th level ranger, which I'd believe. I mean, he really can just live off the land. It's really amazing. DC checks based on terrain. Again, I don't really use DC checks, but I can understand. It's part of the 5e. Makes sense. Weather table. Yeah. Why not, if you need weather? Okay, so yeah, downtime, recuperation. This is kind of interesting. I usually just roll. I have a system for that. It's basically if you get down to 0 hit points, then you roll 2d6 dice. You subtract any con bonuses that you have from that, and that's the number of weeks that you'll need to recover once you've been down to 0 hit points. Weeks. Right, to get back to normal. And then you've got a 10% chance plus 2% for each week that you had to spend recovering of a debilitation. And that's a chance that you're going to be your hero's wrecked somehow. His foot now is twisted. He can't move, you know, half movement. One of his ability scores has dropped, something like that. A massive scar dropped their charisma, you know, something like that. Training's quite long. It lasts 250 days and costs 1 gold piece per day. That's really amazing. I usually my rule of thumb has always been 1 week per level, and then it's usually 1,000 gold pieces per week per level. It's usually that's what I've always done. Which now, you know, when I compare it to that, is actually this is harder than what I use. Mine's actually quite a quick training regiment. But I think for wizards this might make sense. But for fighters to learn new moves and stuff, I mean, when you're ready to learn the new move, you learn it pretty fast, right? You know, from the stuff I've watched and whatever. I never use downtime. It's something I should. I like that they've included in here. Really good stuff. Personally, I've never done it. One game, a Warhammer game I did, I used it and it was a lot of fun. But basically, you know, when I'm doing a game, a campaign style, it's just you're just running from one adventure to the next adventure. There's hardly breathers in there, right? So that's just the way I run it. Combat. So all this is pretty standard. Opportunity attacks. Yeah, I love those. They're great. I also use the advantage, disadvantage, you know, roll 20-sided die, take the highest roll or take the lowest roll. I really like that. You know, that's great. Actions in combat. Critical hits, you know, roll a 20, you always hit. Roll a 1, you always miss. That kind of thing. That's pretty standard. I usually make a dexterity check. Always gives a bonus to armor class. Yeah, that's what I do with cover. I just make cover, you know, because a shield gives you a +1 or +2 to your armor class depending on the kind of shield. And I just see cover as a shield, so I just give a bonus. Like you get a +1 to a +4, up to a +4 if you're nearly invisible, right? Because invisibility is a +4, so that's sort of like if you're peering out of you know, an arrow slit in a castle, that would be a +4 to your armor class deal, you know. But, you know, this is what it is. Temporary hit points, mounted combat. It's really good. It's got everything in it. Hired help, right? Very simplified versions, which I really like. Retainers and loyalty. Monsters. Lots of monsters. I like this. This is a great picture. I love this because it's an actual orc. Right? Yeah, I've got Tales of Adventure. Now, I read Tales of Adventure from Jack London because I heard all the hoopla about orcs and stuff that was going on. I thought, oh my god, how ridiculous. Until I read Tales of Adventure. If you think, oh my god, that's so ridiculous. Yeah, well, I think it's ridiculous too, but I think that I can see why. Like, I don't think that way, obviously. But I can see if somebody did read Tales of Adventure and they sort of start associating sort of the way things were in that book, you know, it's by Jack London, I can see why people might have an issue with orcs, you know, as they are now, the modern orcs, say in the Warhammer world and stuff or whatever. I mean, you just have to read Tales. It's a great book. Highly recommend it. It was a great read, but not woke. So if you can't handle, if you get your feelings hurt, don't read it. Tales of Adventure, Jack London, kind of clarified that a little bit. Made me pause a little bit. I thought, nah, it's ridiculous because that's not how I view it. But I can see why somebody might associate. You know, I'm not going to go into it because, you know, anyway, but this is an old school orc, so no worries here. This guy is part pig, definitely a monster. Saving throws, I really like the saving throws, the way they do the saving throws in here. Challenge. Monsters challenge rate. Yeah, that's not OSR at all. Yeah, no kidding. To have challenge rates, but this is a simplified version of 5e going over to OSR. So sure, why not challenge ratings? But I mean, honestly, if you're playing OSR, there should be things, you know, that you encounter that'll just eat you if you're not smart enough to run away. D&D kind of protects you against that, which again is sort of, you know, is sort of role playing with the training wheels on. You know, that's what I mean by that. That's what 5e is. I don't know about this new one, this 5e 2024. I've just given up on 5e altogether. This is my game is the OSR now. So I haven't even looked at it. I couldn't care less. But random encounters and stuff, monster listings. So it's got all the different monsters, which this is interesting. I don't understand. I mean, I do and I don't. But it's kind of got, in the back here, it's got a section where, I'm just skipping all the monsters because we all know about monsters, right? So, treasures. Alright, that's, okay, we'll encounter it. So we've got a few treasures, a few potions. You see, there's not much because you don't need much because the heroes all have it all. You know? I think it's a shame. Anyway, different magic weapons, miscellaneous magic items. Yeah, that's all good stuff, right? Cursed items. Yeah, so this is, conditions. I really like conditions. I think that's a great addition to any game. I mean that could be a result of you know, a bad combat outcome. You get down to 0 hit points, you make your saving throw, and you end up with a permanent condition. Wouldn't that suck? But that's the thing about the OSR. You're not meant to live forever. I mean, you're basically, it reminds me of that game, Zomboid. You know, this is the story of how you die. Kind of OSR is sort of in that vein, but every once in a while, maybe your 10th character or so will actually live to be really high level, and you know, I don't know, I really like that. I like playing it and I like DMing it. So this is interesting because in here, this is where he references, I showed you where he referenced White Box. Now I'm showing you where he references Swords and Wizardry, and he looks at the SRD online. And this is when he's converting, this is how he converts 5e monsters over to OSR monsters. It's kind of fascinating. I really like this. I'm going to have to examine it more because I've got a lot of 5th edition books, especially monster books. And if I can convert these over for basic fantasy, if he's got a really good method for doing it, I'm in. That's awesome. So, but it does sort of beg the question, why not just play Sword and Wizardry then? This is a great game in itself. But I get it, because Swords and Wizardry is not 5e, and somebody coming over from 5e, right, with the impression that OSR is simpler, might really like this. Plus, if you're just looking for 5e in one single book, you know, this is great. Casual, just, you know. So I get it, I understand it. But that was my comment anyway. I was tired when I wrote that. Now that I think about it, I can think, yeah, I see it. I absolutely see why. Yeah, so more, what is this? Shadow Below. Yeah, so these are CR levels for different monsters. To give you an idea. Yeah, the open gaming license. So you're free to use these. Yeah, a little index in the back. So anyway, that's my look at Olde Sword Reign. I really like this game. I'm probably never going to get a chance to play it. I expected I was going to, because I thought, oh, that's going to be really neat. So that's why I picked up the player's manual, because I thought, oh, I can hand that out at the table. But because I work for a living too, I just don't have time to, you know, mess around with the rules and make them exactly the way I want. So I stuck with basic fantasy, because they're pretty much 90% the way there anyway. And I really love the basic fantasy rules. But anyway, hopefully I'll get a chance to play this one day. But anyway, that is my review of Olde Sword Reign. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far, please leave a comment. It really helps the channel out. Leave a like, and if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. I haven't been around for a while. It's been, I don't know, I went to Cancun, came back, went with my grandkids, had a blast, came back, my job changed, blah, blah, blah. I've got loads of excuses, but I haven't been uploading as many videos as I would like, unfortunately. And, but I'm getting back into it now, and I'm back. My job's changed back to my regular job, so I've got more free time. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to making more videos for you guys. So, thanks for watching, and till next time, take care.